Hey guys, welcome back to Honey Number X, and today I'm doing the first video for my new channel, well, my second channel really, called Honey Number Watches. And just letting you know to go subscribe to that like right now, because I'll be doing a couple videos, mostly just some other stuff. No music here. I won't do any like music stuff, but maybe music related videos, you know what I mean? And I'll also be doing, you know, interviews, compilations. So just comment down what you'd like me to do. Just keep it under like 10 minutes. It says Audiences Hate Bad Writing, Not Strong Women by Master Samwise. I'll leave the link to the video, original video, in the description. Let's just get started in 3, 2, 1.
She-Hulk, Peter Pan and Wendy, The Rings of Power, Captain Marvel, The Last Jedi, Mulan. All products featuring a female lead of significant strength or power, all brutally panned by audiences. Why is that? Sexism, right? Or maybe it's just bad character writing. That's not to discount the awfulness of any actual hatred of female characters due to their gender, but it's quite apparent once you think about it that such hateful commentary only finds any significant audience if the wider, less spiteful viewing public dislikes the character for their own, more sensible reasons. The main reason, of course, is that so many lead women in film and TV in the past decade are just horribly written. There are plenty of exceptions, of course, and we'll talk about a few of those. This is a problem most notable in Disney projects, as you could tell from my list.
I'm surprised too in the Disney projects, because literally the original stories are really good at writing women, like stuff like Princess and the Frog, Cinderella was really good, Hercules was really good. I thought we got such a diverse Aladdin, like we had such a diverse collection of like female characters, but I get what he's getting at. Like nowadays it feels kind of like I'm just thinking, who wrote these lines, bro?
But since Disney owns half the world at this point, it feels like a wider issue. So what exactly makes these characters such bad examples of what a protagonist should be? Well, it's hard to point to any one thing in particular. Not all the characters discussed here will share the same writing flaws. They all fail in varying ways, but they do have some similarities. A common one is being overpowered and not really earning that power. The original animated film shows Mulan's struggle due to her inexperience and lack of physical prowess, but she makes up for those disadvantages by using her wits, thinking creatively, and refusing to quit even when things seem hopeless. The new Mulan is basically a superhero already due to her midichlorians, and thus is automatically more skilled than everyone else. There's no need for her to use her brain or develop new ways to approach problems, leaving the character flat and uninteresting. It's worth noting—
oh my god, that's the thing that got me about the movie. Like I was watching it and I was so excited for it too. And so when I was watching it, I was like, so where's my sis supposed to develop her talents? I was just really disappointed in the fact that they made her have these like mystical type of powers where she's kind of like OP, like he said, overpowered from when she's literally a child. So I'm like, so what is she supposed to learn right now? And then, you know that part of the movie where she meets like the Hawk Lady? Shan Yu, okay. Shan Yu, okay. I didn't even mind that he had been changed. I didn't care. I was like, okay, cool. We have a female villain. Let's go. But I thought it was gonna happen like this, where she was gonna meet the lady, and then they would kind of connect in that level. That's what I liked. That's the one part of the movie I did enjoy, was the interaction between her and the lady that could like transform. Those were like so sick, and I wish it had been transformed. If they were even gonna change it in such a way where she already has power, corrupted by that power even. You know, she's morally upright in here. She's hella powerful. She doesn't need to learn anything. Why does she even have friends to help her out? They are of no help, you know? Let's continue.
that when I say earning power, that doesn't necessarily mean doing something noble or virtuous that results in the character being given great power, as is the case with someone like Captain America. Most superheroes do not earn their abilities in such a way. Their powers are forced upon them through chance or freak accident, and that's fine. However, to then earn the power given them, the hero should have to struggle in some way, to grow into his or her abilities. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movie is a classic example of this.
Yeah, I
Peter
just watched
Parker is
it.
given superpowers through a random spider bite, but he doesn't instantly know what to do with his newfound abilities, nor even how to put them to proper use. There are significant growing pains as he learns to be the hero he now must
Ooh.
become. A more recent example of this trope that was done fairly well is Kate Bishop from The Hawkeye Show that at least 20 people watched. Despite
Only
being an
20
incredibly
people?
talented archer and martial artist from the get-go, Kate is woefully inexperienced in the world of crime fighting and has to
Oh.
learn how to apply her skills in each new situation, relying on the mentorship of Hawkeye himself.
He gets
On
a
the flip
side.
side, we have characters like She-Hulk
Hold
and
up, I
Rey
wanna watch that
Skypatine.
now.
Rey's progression through
looks
her Jedi
interesting.
training was basically just whatever the plot required at any given moment. Jen Walters woke up as She-Hulk and immediately was in full control of her alter ego.
Right.
The central
I
struggles
watched
that
the
defined the character.
Sorry to pause. But I watched the first episode. Couldn't get past the first episode, honestly. Like, after that, I just was not interested. But why was she doing everything better than him, like, just naturally? You know, is that her actual origin story? Like, I wanted her to struggle in some way. It just feels like everything's so easy, and I'm like, what's the point of this story if she's not struggling? It just feels like this, like, what is the point of this show, really?
From whom these heroines were
Who is
derived
it?
are just
Who is
stripped
it?
away and not replaced by anything meaningful. Jen's defining character moment takes place during a group therapy session when she comes to the realization that she needs to accept that she doesn't need to be She-Hulk to find acceptance. That's right, the apex of Jen's character arc is her deciding that she can be herself. This wasn't an issue, by the way, until after the She-Hulk persona was present. Prior to her accident, Jen appeared to be quite satisfied with her life. For some
Right.
unknown reason, she only decided to get into the dating scene after spending some time as a giant green monster, and then found out apparently there's no market for a reasonably attractive 30-something-year-old lawyer in Los Angeles. I don't
No matches? Now that's a dang lie. I know they had to edit that, because if it was for real, bro, she would have had thousands of matches. Like, stop.
know about you, but to me that feels a bit contrived. Look, I'm not in the online dating scene, but I have it on good authority that women tend to get significantly more attention than men do on those apps, especially if they happen to be successful and not ugly. Does this show seriously
Not
expect me to
ugly.
believe that the only guys willing to even talk to Jen Walters are total creeps and losers, or alternatively, men who are only charming and friendly because they have an agenda?
When I was accepted to SU, that was
You know what? Hold up. Let's let this ad go. Y'all go support him. What gets me is the fact that this kind of reminds me of men who write female characters in a book. You know what I mean? Like, they make them seem like this, like, really natural girl who is just kind of perfect in a lot of ways. They try to really I don't know how to explain it. Like in this case where it seems like she's only attracting bums, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, this girl isn't very attractive, or there's something wrong with her. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. That's the issue. So she should be attracting everybody. But I feel like they're trying to get the audience to, like, feel like, oh, she's so underappreciated. Imagine she turned into She-Hulk, but then it messed up her physical features as a human being. Like, then she'd be obsessed with turning into She-Hulk, because then she wouldn't have to look at herself like with Wade Wilson. Like, if she was looking like that, whew, she's staying that She-Hulk form.
Speaking of which, let's talk about Disney's obsession with promoting and elevating women. It's one thing to have female characters who are smart, strong, persistent, and courageous.
Star Wars
It's
is
quite
so
another
good, bro.
to simply promote the power of women by setting them up on a pedestal. That kind of treatment is nothing more than pandering, and stories that contain it suffer greatly. Take, for example, the recent Peter Pan and Wendy, which decided that the all-male cast of Lost Boys wasn't inclusive enough, and so tossed some girls into the mix. Girls can be rough and tumble too, you hear? Do you know why the Lost Boys were originally all boys? It's because they fell out of their prams, or strollers for you Americans, and were carted off to Neverland. And girls are
What?
far too clever to do such a stupid thing. But apparently no one involved in the
What?
casting decision had ever read the original novel, so here we are. Or we could talk about Captain Marvel and the thinly veiled metaphor for the patriarchy embodied in the one dude who keeps telling her to not use her true power because that's cheating or whatever. And of course, She-Hulk seems to be mostly made
movie
just
was
to
terrible.
complain about the pig-headedness of men.
There's a hot chick over there. I'm gonna go talk to it.
Yeah, nobody talks like that. It should come as no surprise that these shows and movies don't just fail at writing good female characters. They're terribly written across the board.
I'm the spy. What?
It's not just Rey that the audience dislikes. No characters from the Disney trilogy won the hearts of the audience.
Don't talk about my man Isaac like that. Oscar Isaac? I remember watching it. That was my first Star Wars movie, it was like such a big deal. I was like, oh, let me go see this. Literally, Poe, that's my favorite character. I honestly don't remember much of the movie besides him. I don't even care if the writing was bad. I might watch this actually. With the case with Neverland, it just seems makes it feel like these studios are trying to give us bad writing with women in it so then people can hate on it and then make us think it's because it's female characters, but really it's just bad writing that they chose to use for female led like shows. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very disappointing. And I've read way too many like books with female characters written very well for this to be coming out of studios. Like, are you kidding me right now?
Remember how great of a character Nick Fury was in Captain Marvel? Yeah, neither does anyone else. Elrond really stood out
liked
in
him in
Rings of
there.
Power, right?
He was actually
Okay,
really
he actually wasn't terrible. He wasn't good, but he could have been worse. Honestly, Galadriel could have been worse too. Not that I think she was well written, she wasn't, and her introduction in the first episode is basically a how-to course on annoying audiences. We first meet her as she's being tormented by other elf children for having the audacity to think that her origami swan will float. Not only does this display a severe lack of understanding of what elves are in Tolkien's Legendarium on the writer's part, it demonstrates a cheap trick that modern media likes to use in order to attempt to make the audience like a character.
Right.
Forced sympathy.
That's what I was trying to say. Oh my God, that's what he got to the point. Listen, this is why he made this movie and he made this video and I didn't. Because I'm trying to like put it into words, but he said it like perfectly, like forced pity. It's like the movie is too aware that there's an audience, if that makes sense.
Mantra goes something like this. Look, this character is being mistreated. You must then feel bad for her and like her. The correct response to that is, of course, why is this character being mistreated? For all we know, Galadriel was being a complete twerp just moments before this scene, and is totally deserving of having her boat sunk. There's no narrative reason.
Okay, or kids are just... No, honestly, kids would be like, oh my God, wow, that's so amazing, that's so cool, teach us how to do it. Like, they don't know kids at all.
Be tormented here. It's just an attempt at manipulating the audience into feeling bad for the poor, helpless victim, and thus hopefully liking her. Contrast that with Arcane and the plight of Vin and Powder. The show opens with an actually tragic scene, and it doesn't stoop to the pointed, petty tactics of Rings of Power. Galadriel lives in Valinor, a place of transcendent peace and harmony, so the writers contrived an inane attempt at sympathy. Arcane is set largely in a brutal slum of a city, but it gives its main character a plucky, relentless attitude that rejects the victimhood status which so many other modern properties confer upon their heroines. Because if you're a victim, how can anyone hate you? Well, it's pretty easy when you're incredibly smug and don't give a rat's ass about the safety of your troops. The me against the world vibes from Galadriel in the first episode are just so tired and overdone. We know she's going to be right about Sauron still being around because of course she is. She can take down the Ice Troll single-handedly because of course she can. However, that on its own would not necessarily be...
Listen, I don't know who this Sauron person is. Wait, no, I do. I watched Lord of the Rings. I watched the first one. He's the guy that's coming for the ring. Okay, yeah, now I remember. But he just said what I was saying too. We've seen Lord of the Rings. We know what's coming in the future. I guess this show is set before. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they're too aware of this being a movie that there's an audience that these things are gonna happen.
Bad writing. Galadriel, because that is what the show calls her, is quite old and thus an experienced warrior. I'm willing to accept that this character has spent centuries in combat and thus is highly skilled and capable of such feats. What makes this scene so absurd is that all the other elves around her, these warriors hand-picked to exterminate Sauron and the remnants of his armies, are completely and totally hapless and helpless to the point that they might as well be a different species than their
I'm dead,
leader.
they're shook. That's the type of shit I hate too, because why do we all pull up as a badass team, but y'all is suddenly helpless and forget all your training? That feels like they're just trying to make the main character look better, and I hate shit like that. Oh, I hate it.
It's really fine to have protagonists who are supremely skilled, but it's a really poor choice to have the supporting characters be complete
Like
buffoons
that Thor
in order to
scene was
showcase
way
that
better
skill.
than this.
Galadriel might as well just be out there on her own. Really, most of the examples I've listed tend to just do things solo. It is up to them and them alone to win the day. As in Captain Marvel and Mulan, all they really need to do is seize the power that is already within them to throw off the shackles others would impose upon them, and victory is theirs. The dramatic shift between victimhood and total power is what these movies believe to be meaningful character work, but it's really just a violent swing from one extreme to the other, and neither end of the spectrum is healthy. There's a huge difference between having agency and being world-conquering forces of nature that only needed to shrug off the hands holding them down. If you're going to write the hero of a story, a central character who ultimately is able to conquer the evil he or she faces, you need to make them earn it. That protagonist needs to struggle or even suffer as they obtain the strength necessary to win the day. Ideally, they would find such strength through meaningful relationships, or by learning from those wiser or more experienced than them. Recent examples of this done at least fairly well: Rita Vertasky, a supremely skilled soldier having to work together with Tom Cruise's character, whose name I forget, to gradually establish a plan to win the war.
What is
Vi
this?
being motivated by love for her sister, relying on others in her fight, badly missing the guidance of her father figure. Kate Bishop being mentored by Hawkeye as she realizes how ill-prepared she is for the world she has stumbled into. There are plenty of
Ooh,
other
listen, I'm
examples
watching
of
this show,
female
I don't care.
protagonists who match that description, but I wanted to point out some from within the last decade to emphasize the point that audiences do not, by and large, just hate any strong woman on screen right now, just the ones whose character arcs are flatter than the state of Kansas. Characters who need only achieve self-actualization are not only boring and lack meaningful character work, they teach us awful lessons. The idea that all that is needed for success is to seize the strength and power already within you is a harmful notion that discredits the value of relationships, personal growth, and humility. You are sufficient, these stories tell their audiences. You don't need to change. Our heroes are supposed to inspire us, either by their ability to grow beyond their own flaws and failures, or, despite being paragons of virtue and goodness, still having to struggle against overwhelming odds and having to use their wits to be creative, to trust their team to win the day.
Exactly.
Indeed, some of the most admirable characters in fiction, ones who do not suffer all that much personal growth due to having already attained great virtue, find themselves insufficient. This is most clear in Tolkien's work, where characters such as Faramir, Theoden, and Aragorn, great men who suffer little if any inner turmoil, at least in the books, are not able to win the day, but rather can only play their part in the war that will define the future of Middle-earth. They teach us the message we need here, the message that Disney and Hollywood want to keep from our ears. And that is, you are not enough, but you still can do great things. They may not bring you glory. They may even bring you pain and suffering, but if you put the good of others before your own needs and wants, you will find true and lasting happiness. So many modern heroines fail to win the love of the audience because they take shortcuts to power. They are elevated by the story rather than having to climb up their own character arc. They are shallow character molds created largely to prove a point or push an agenda, and perhaps most importantly, they tend to care for themselves, their own success, their own ideas of what it means to be fulfilled. Hollywood and Disney in particular seem to want so badly to provide us with examples of powerful women, but they fail to understand what makes for a good example or role model. The heroines they prop up are too often shallow, unlikable, and exhibit many of the traits, such as arrogance and abrasiveness, that their creators find abhorrent in male protagonists. How is this fixed? Simple. Create characters to tell a story, not to prove a point. Either show flawed characters who have to grow and change to heal their inner wounds and overcome their shortcomings, or give us paragons of virtue who have to struggle, sacrifice, and suffer due to the evil they face. But most importantly, write characters whose defining moments do not come as they realize their own worth and value, that they themselves are sufficient, but rather as they decide to take selfless action for the good of others.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you!
Well, those are all my rambling thoughts on the matter. I hope we see lots more characters like Vi, Kim Wexler, Rita Vertasky, and Evelyn from the Quiet Place movies. I just realized 2 of those characters are played by Emily Blunt. No surprise there, considering her publicly stated thoughts on the strong female lead trope. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts and opinions, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for this great video. But yeah, this was a really good video. I really appreciate it. And I'll check you guys out next time. Bye.